But let's get straight on here with the biggest news. This is the top story on the BBC website this morning. Mystery surrounds objects shot down by US military. And this seems to be a theme right across the mainstream press. Nobody really knows what kind of objects are being shot down by the US military at the moment. We'll come on to the details of it in a second. But this is really, although the BBC didn't mention UFOs specifically, the Daily Mail certainly did, and here's their headline for today. So it's been happening for years. Mark Rubio says UFOs have routinely operated over restricted US airspace, but America has no idea what they are or where they come from, as Pentagon refuses to rule out 3 objects shot down over the weekend are aliens. David, I want to get your thoughts on this first of all. Are we really in the world where the mainstream press is running this type of conspiracy theory?
And it's not even August. I thought this was reserved for August, but no, apparently not. Apparently we're running these at all 12 months of the year. What they're trying to suggest is somewhere on Earth, there's a little alien sitting looking very unhappy, and he's writing to himself, he's writing, "Dear Diary, came to Earth for a short mini break. It didn't go well. The Americans mistook me for a Chinese weather balloon and shot me down." That seems to be the BBC's take on things. And well, words fail me, Mike.
Well, words fail me as well. So let's just look at what's actually been going on. If we bring this one on screen, if we could, Stephanie, please. So US shoots down unknown object the size of a small car after it entered airspace near Alaska. This was the headlines over the weekend. It was all over the BBC and so on. So they shot down this unknown flying object off the coastline of Alaska, just days after it downed a Chinese spy balloon, is what the text says. It was shot down on the orders of President Biden. It was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet, and so it was considered a threat to civilian airspace and so on. So let's just have a brief look at the briefing from the Pentagon.
So first of all, to add to information already provided earlier by the White House, at the direction of the President of the United States, fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water. On February 9, North American Aerospace Defense Command detected an object on ground radar and further investigated and identified the object using fighter aircraft. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. U.S. Northern Command is beginning recovery operations now.
So that was then followed up with another one which headed into Canadian airspace and so on. But sticking with the Alaska story for a second, this headline in Newsweek: Alaska governor fears airspace intrusions may be the new norm. And this is Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy saying, unlike other states, Alaska is truly on the front lines because of our close proximity to our neighbors. There's very little margin for error. Russian territory is only a few miles away. We are the one state closest to the Korean Peninsula and China. Alaska is truly on the front lines, and not to be outdone. Then Lisa Murkowski pushes zero tolerance for threats for Alaskan space. So she's Alaska's senator, and she's saying basically, you know, this is sovereign airspace. We can't have our sovereign integrity. Very much similar language to sort of Ukrainian situation and so on. This was the Chinese response, just for the record. The China side has repeatedly shared information and stated its position on the unintended entry of the unmanned Chinese civilian airship into US airspace due to force majeure. The US Congress's resolution is purely about scoring political points and dramatizing the whole thing. China deplores it and firmly opposes it. And this was because the US Congress had passed a resolution criticizing China for their surveillance tactics in the United States. But look, this statement also came out from the Pentagon over the weekend, at least from North American Aerospace Defense Command. Let's just zoom in on that a little bit. It says, with the cooperation of Federal Aviation Administration, North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, implemented a temporary flight restriction airspace in central Montana on the 11th of February 2023 to ensure the safety of air traffic in the area during NORAD operations. The restriction has been lifted. NORAD detected a radar anomaly and sent fighter aircraft to investigate. Those aircraft did not identify any object to correlate to the radar hits. NORAD will continue to monitor the situation. So now not only do we have the mainstream press seriously talking about space aliens, but we have NORAD having some kind of anomaly on the radar, scrambling jets on a regular basis. And of course, that will generate headlines as well. David, I just want to get your thoughts on this situation. Then I've got to ask Mark for comment as well.
Well, firstly, right, Alaska's on the front lines. So this is a drumbeat. It's all urgent. It's all stressed. We're on the front lines. The front line of what? Occasional weather balloons blowing over. Right? I mean, it's very, very strange to be hiking up this level of fear and anxiety over, it would appear, something that's utterly trivial. Now, the second thing is, for those of us who have looked into the events surrounding 9/11, the prompt response of fighter jets to radar anomalies is very encouraging, because it didn't happen then. And the whole unknown nature of what they shot down also is a bit puzzling, because surely fighter pilots have eyeballs and have some idea before they shoot something down what it is. I mean, that would be normal procedure, wouldn't it? You would fly alongside and have a little look to make sure it wasn't, something you don't want to be shooting down. So this all seems to be extremely strange.
Yes, Mark, have you got any thoughts?
Not a whole lot. This one's not my bailiwick lately, but David stole my thunder just a tad there. I was going to say essentially the same thing, that you would identify something before you would shoot it down. I don't know if they'll eventually try and blame some of this on Russia coming across the Bering Straits there. Maybe they're setting us up for that. In conspiracy lore, there's been people predicting for years that some agency of the government will act like there's going to be an alien invasion to galvanize the populace, to unify people behind a common threat. I'm sure that that's not what this is, but it bears at least a mention. We'll just have to see how this unfolds to see if that's not what it is. Some sort of ever expanding specter of a so-called alien presence or alien invasion for some sort of propaganda or population control purposes. That's a far out assumption right now, but it bears mention because that's been floating around the internet for years.
Well, indeed.